So yesterday, law enforcement agencies led by the Deputy Minister of Home Affairs, Njabulo Nzuza, conducted a major immigration-led operation in the West Rand. The operation saw 21 undocumented foreign nationals from countries including Malawi, China and Zimbabwe taken into custody. This follows mounting concerns and claims of a large number of illegal migrants or immigrants allegedly operating businesses and being employed in the area. The Deputy Minister now joins us to shed more light on the objectives and outcomes of this crucial operation. A very good morning to you, Deputy Minister. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. So were you able yesterday to get to the bottom of how these undocumented foreign nationals ended up at that structure?
Good morning, Altrin, and good morning to all your viewers at home. The operation we were conducting yesterday was part of the Operation Newzroom, which we conduct with our inspectorate unit, basically to deal with areas where illegal foreign nationals are employed, and then we have to act appropriately because we cannot allow lawlessness. We're able to get a tip off as part of the operation that in that Roteport factory, there are operations that are happening and illegal foreign nationals are employed in the factory. Now, what will have been very difficult is that you do not get a lot of movement in the factory of people getting in and out because they are actually staying in the factory. They work there, sleep there, stay there, they spend all their lives there, even including cooking and everything else, which is not allowed. Now, we had to act quite swiftly there, and as a result, 22 of those were taken into custody. Out of those, 2 were released pending application of one of their visas, and the other one has a work permit, but the 19 were actually detained and will be appearing in court now.
Yeah, but who's the mastermind? Who's the person who's behind this operation?
Oh, yes. Part of the reason we go to this operation, Aldrin, is to get syndicates that are operating within our environment. And there was a person who has been fingered around Gauteng. I will not give details of that particular person, that they refer to the person as the boss, who is in essence responsible for the plant, who is benefiting from the plant. But on site, we were able to arrest what we call a manager of the plant. What we also noticed is that these syndicates are also growing in terms of knowledge and how they operate in terms of sophistication. For instance, you immediately arrest them. Then suddenly someone comes with an X5. They say, no, we are interpreters for these people who are now being arrested, which points that they are really organized in how they operate. We are going to continue with the investigation to ultimately get the person responsible who is financially benefiting from that particular plant.
Is it known whether the so-called boss is a South African?
No, the boss is not a South African because when they refer to that particular person, they are referring to a Chinese national. They also, the person that we arrested on the scene, who is a manager of the plant, was also a Chinese national. In fact, out of those, about 2 of them were actually Chinese nationals. So we'll follow through with this investigation right up until the end. I hope that you will understand, Adrian, we won't be able to share much about the details of the operation because that also hinders our operational capacity and our intelligence gathering. But we'll get to the bottom of it. Look, the numbers might seem as if they are small, but remember, these kind of plants are operating throughout the country. So when we get to one plant, it leads us to another, it leads us to a syndicate. Then in a few months, you will hear us coming back saying, look, we've cracked the syndicate, we've arrested all the masterminds behind these such operations.
Yeah, and the owner of the factory itself?
It seems the factory was actually owned by a South African company that later sold it to a Chinese company. And then when that happens, it means that those people hand over to the Chinese company. And what was worrying for us is that it's not just about the issue of immigration, but how they also were powering up the plant. I mean, they were illegally connected to the power supply, which is an issue for us. And all of that is done at the appetite of profits because they want to increase their profits. But I can tell you, they're not going to get away with this. We've been cracking syndicates. We've been making arrests. We'll continue to do so. We won't leave this hanging like this just by saying, no, we took 19 Malawian nationals who are illegal, therefore it ends there. It doesn't end there. How did they get there? Why are they employed there? And the main thing that we want to do is to make sure that we punish employers, because they result into a pull factor for other people who want to come to the country illegally to come in, because they understand that they are employers who are willing to employ them. So if we cut that off, it will mean less people will have interest in coming into the country illegally.
Yeah. What were they manufacturing?
It was steel. They were producing some steel products. It was all lined up on the floor. Basically, it's a steel manufacturing plant.
A steel manufacturing plant. Okay, let's then move
Steel
on.
Manufacturing plant.
All right, let's now move on to another matter also relating to immigration, and that is the March in March or March on March campaigns that have been happening in Gauteng as well as in KwaZulu-Natal. Yesterday, they had another operation as well. Government has come out to say that it is unlawful to block people from accessing healthcare. But outside of saying that it is unlawful to do so, is there any action that is being taken to ensure that those who are breaking the law are stopped from breaking the law, in and as far as it is with the campaign of March and March?
Well, let me just indicate that I have been in contact with the people who are leading the March in March. I think sometime but a few months ago, they requested us that we accept a memorandum of demands in Durban. Now, we have to operate within the law, Aldrin. In everything that we do, we must make sure that we do not become a lawless country. Doesn't mean that because the other hand is breaking the law, therefore the other hand must also break the law to try and get the things right. That's not how the country works. We must at all times observe the law. And I think when it comes to law intervention, the police then are responsible to make sure that those who break the law, we are responsible to act against those who break the immigration law of the country and the movement and the illegal movement of people. But when individuals break the law, the police will then intervene and then deal with that matter. Look, the issue of illegal immigration is a concern for all of us. As South Africans, I think we are speaking in one voice now more than ever that we cannot have illegal immigration. We'll appreciate tip-offs of where illegal immigrants are staying and all those kinds of collaborations that we must have in order to combat illegal immigration. But we must never break the law, and not anyone, regardless of their status, has the right to then break the law. We know it's a common fact. We are registering quite a number of foreign national beds in our hospitals, which means that there is quite a high number. But that does not mean that you must deny a pregnant mother who's coming to deliver health services. It is inhumane. It is not for us as South Africans to do that. It is not in us. We stick to the law. We operate by the law. Sina spirit sobuntu.
Yeah. There's always reference that is made to Section 25 of the Constitution in terms of why undocumented foreign nationals should be receiving healthcare, or at least emergency healthcare as well. I want to quickly read that chapter 2 of the Bill of Rights, Section 27 of the Constitution, dealing with healthcare, food, water, as well as social security. Section 1 says everyone has the right to have access to A, healthcare services, including reproductive health care, sufficient food and water, C, social security, including if they are unable to support themselves and their dependents, appropriate social assistance. And I want to focus on that C part, especially on social security. So everyone has the right to have access to social security. But the way that our Social Security Act works and how it is interpreted, that particular section of the law, is to say that social security is only afforded to South African nationals or asylum seekers that have the documentations, if I'm not mistaken. So social security is not afforded to everyone. There are conditions that are attached to that. But why is it when it comes to healthcare, there are no conditions attached to that?
Yeah, remember, Aldrin, beyond the Constitution, we are also signatories to a number of United Nations conventions. And those conventions actually talk about issues of access to healthcare, especially for asylum seekers and refugees. And what we did was to domesticate those particular conventions into some of the pieces of our law. And you must remember, in terms of the law, there has been quite a number of judgments when it comes to these issues. For instance, when it comes to education, where children of foreign nationals are allowed to go to school even if they are illegal. And also the issue of the children's rights also comes into effect here. So we're not just dealing with one issue, we're just dealing with a multiple of issues. And I think the white paper that the department is currently working on, which we had to adjust to also deal with issues of the digital platforms that we're creating and other issues that came from Operation Vulindlela, is still in process, and I think it will be able to deal with some of those issues. But all in all, we must accord healthcare. We are supposed to accord healthcare in a number of other laws that come in, also from the United Nations conventions that we signed up to.
All right. And then just finally, Minister, it's a case from a while ago. Chidima Adechina, her mum, Annabella Rungo. How far is that matter?
Well, we closed the matter from our side as we indicated that she was not South African on the basis of the mother having acquired the documentation fraudulently. Subsequent to that, we then handed over the matter to the police, and also in terms of the contravention of the immigration laws for the mother as well, was also handed over to the police. It is now a police matter that they will then take her to court because it has transgressed some of the laws, and ultimately it becomes a matter of justice for them to process. And I think this also is an example of how committed we are in making sure that we fight illegal immigration. And we want to make it very clear, yes, it might seem as if it's a difficult job to do, but we will do it consistently up until illegal immigration is defeated in South Africa.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Njabulo Nzuza is the Deputy Minister for Home Affairs on the operation that they carried out yesterday.